Wooks and Warlocks contains sex, drugs, and rock and roll, and as such is intended for adults. Content warning can be found in the description. Hello and welcome to Wooks and Warlocks. And we're not doing the role-playing thing this time. We're pretty tired. It's been a long day at work. And you know what? We talked about it and we decided. I decided and then we went after it. But the idea is we're gonna do a little behind-the-scenes episode today and break character, break the fourth wall, and talk about what it's been like putting together this podcast from square one. Being utter amateurs at recording, at voice acting, in some ways playing tabletop role-playing games, and all that sort of stuff. So we will still go ahead and introduce ourselves. As you guys know, my name is Trey Miller. I have been playing the role of Dungeon Master, and it has been my pleasure to voice and give personality to like a dozen or so other characters that have managed to come and go throughout the adventure.
My name's Anthony Ryan. I usually play as Antor, but today I'm playing me. And, we're just opening up, being ourselves, relaxing, and, yeah.
My name is Jessie Bennett. I normally play Granny Glinda, but as Ryan said, today we're just playing ourselves.
Excuse me. I would have been embarrassed if that was a normal episode. My name is John Lombardi. I play Elijah Woodstone, the Elk Folk Farm Wizard. And yeah, we're just hanging out. Just reading the back of my bottle of water, actually. And I heard that, I always thought that was going to be a thing, man. Like the cars that go by and like the motorcycle, I always hear it. And a lot of times it was at like perfect points where like Trey'd be saying something in the story and we'd be like on the near road, obviously. And it'd be like, and I always was like, oh, that's going to be cool. But it never picked it up.
It really doesn't.
Yeah. Like
well, there's a lot of that's the noise canceling. So, talking about what we're doing and stuff, we don't have the most sophisticated setup. We're in the back room of our little 100-year-old shack in downtown Commerce, Georgia, and there's like insulation covering the windows so that we don't hear the neighbors and all the trucks going by, and we use like some little Tascam condenser microphones, and thankfully between that and whatever we've got going on Logic Pro over here, the noise cancellation is not too bad. It'd be fun to pick up background noise and
the train.
There's a train that goes by. There's all sorts of stuff that we think certainly that's being heard, but no, it doesn't come through. And I think in some ways the music kind of covers that up a little bit too, but that's not happening at all times. So this has been for a lot of us, for all four of us, the first time we've ever recorded voice acting. We've done anything like this, really. I mean, I perform regularly in a band, and so I have a lot of microphone experience. And Jesse, you grew up in a musical family, so you're not unfamiliar with a microphone.
Not unfamiliar, but it's certainly my first time actively talking into one.
John, these are your microphones.
Yeah. I did a podcast in, I don't know, randomly. It was like the beginning of 2017, actually. Yeah, no, it was, because I opened it up with, Trump's president, because it was like the beginning of 2017 after the 2016 election. And, but yeah, so that's all my experience has been. I did about like 30 episodes where I just like have friends come in and like one-on-one, and we would just have a conversation. I have a few topics pulled up on like my laptop, like if I ran out of something to say.
Sure.
And, like, so I got used to filling the space and like be like, hey, we're recording, like somebody's got to be saying something. So that experience kind of transitioned over.
Definitely. And Ryan, you're an avid listener to podcasts, but this is kind of your first acting and voice acting and recording stuff like at all, right?
Yeah. I like voices. I like making voices and stuff. I've got a real mundane job, so I'm just like thinking of like dumb shit all day in my head and listening to stuff all day, and love podcasts and love all their voices. And I was trying to be. Jesus. Sorry, that was like me hitting the mic. That's how like new.
Here, turn that
basic I am.
Space toward you.
I think it was my leg.
Rotate it that way. There you go. That way that'll support it.
Beautiful. Thank you.
We've recorded like 33 episodes and never had that happen. We
It's
did
the
one
first time
casual episode.
So going into character, like Xantor is therapy for me. So like going into character is a way to be like, relax. I find it super relaxing, and I'm just so grateful to have the opportunity to work with you guys. Like it's really nice.
I get scared being in Granny Glinda's character sometimes because I feel like I'm going to start like I'm trying to be a really nice person in real life, and I feel like sometimes I'm going to let loose the extremely evil and horrid nature of Granny Glinda.
Get a little stabby.
Well, the funniest thing was you started, I call it knitting, but it's crochet. But yeah, well, and I'm scared I call it knitting. You're going to stab me. Right when you invented Granny Glinda as a character, you also picked up crocheting, which, of course, made everyone around who was listening to the podcast or participating in it just kind of a little bit more on their toes around sweet Jessie Bennett.
It's nice. It's nice getting to play such an evil character because, sometimes dealing with people of the world, you want to get angry and you want to get pissed at somebody. But I try to see the best in everybody and be the best person I could be to make everybody else happy. And that brings me joy. So it is nice to have an output to let out all this secretly evil shit that's buried deep inside me.
We all have it, I think. Do you think that Granny Glinda is evil? That's a good kind of a point and a thing to talk about.
I'd say she's probably more on the side of neutral than evil, more about getting the job done and doing the job. She'll follow the rules of a job, and she won't necessarily go out to murder somebody unless she's told to,
Yeah. So I find it's always an interesting thing to see what characters come and go and how people tend to interact, and the character that has become my favorite to play, it seems like it's been a favorite of our interactions, has been Harry Thrills. Harry Frills, and his gun is the Thrills. And I think it would be
fun.
It
Frills?
Harry Frills, yeah. So here's the backstory, right?
I thought it was Thrills and
Well,
Thrills.
And I think I say it sometimes.
Yeah.
It's easy to get mixed up. So the backstory here, and this is one of the first stories I actually wrote for Wooks and Warlocks. So it's the story of Harry Frills, the porn detective. This was back when Lawson McClure, who plays Norlin, was we lived together and was going to be the third player in the adventure. He's great with he's from the what do they call it, the New England area, or is it north of that? He's from New Jersey, I think, and so he's the city characters were something fun to interact with, that part of his personality, and we all worked together in this fabric shop where Ryan, Jesse, and I work currently, and sometimes the fabric comes with these little frilly ends on it, and before you can turn it into the things that we make, you have to cut off the hairy frills. And so Ryan had a line on the table that you'd move it to, if you're going to cut it normally, you'd put it here. If it had hairy frills, you put it here. And so that we were starting to practice improv, and we were just throwing around ideas and characters in the store. And I think it was kind of one of those days where we could make a character anything. Look, Harry Frills right there, Harry Frills, the porn detective. And
I call it the porn detective.
I don't.
The porn detective.
He was made that day.
Where the hell did that come from?
Yeah, what does that even mean? What is a porn detective?
Ryan, elaborate.
Oh, I have no idea where it came from. Harry Frills is just the name of the porn detective. That's a name of a porn detective.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
A detective that is a porn star.
Yeah.
To me, I don't know. He could be. you know, but I don't think Harry's
Or a
doing
porn
it.
star.
or it's
Day,
just like
perhaps.
works
He's investigating
on porn
them.
star crimes.
Yeah, he's like porn crime. Like whenever
Porn
there's
crime.
crimes happening in porn.
crime. So real detective. I was thinking a porn star that's pretending to be a detective in the porn.
It could be any of that. And
I imagine he probably did something in his younger days.
But Harry, to me, Harry is like he's like really cares about the disenfranchised sex workers that end up in the porn industry. And I was thinking at the time about how Lund was this enlightened place where sex work was accepted and had like a union and was all really well done in a healthy, respectful sort of way. And Harry was a PI who he looked out for these dames. You know, he cares about them a lot. These is good dames, whether you know whose they are, we care, and that's what was fun about Harry. But that was his origin. Was the words "Harry Frills" written on our cutting table in our fabric shop.
Yeah, I had no idea. It's just a line that we cut the fabric. Did it? If it had little Harry Frills on it, I think. I don't know, somebody or my dad, but that's what they're called. These little hairy frills.
What a perfect name.
Elijah was definitely 100%. My subconscious stole it from Eli Gemstone from the Righteous Gemstones, and I didn't realize it until like the third episode in when I was already committed to it. I was like, oh, because I almost said Gemstone. I was like, oh my God, that's like the dad on the Righteous Gemstones.
It's after the dad, Elijah Woodstone. Like
Gemstone
Elijah
is his
Woodstone.
name. I came up with Woodstone. I don't know but definitely subconsciously, like the Eli Woodstone, Eli Gemstone. Like
You know,
the
I
way
don't
that he
see
talks
a
with
lo-
a southern accent.
Yeah,
like,
I don't see a lot of similarities in them at first, but then I think about like when Elijah Woodstone loses his temper and starts smashing his head into people. It's a lot like when Elijah Gemstone goes off and breaks people's thumbs. He's he's got this signature thing when he loses his composure and he's
Speaking of that character, John Goodman.
Yeah.
He played a similar character in Oh Brother, Where Art Thou?
Yeah,
Cyclops.
The Cyclops. Yeah.
I mean, that's
Bible salesman.
It's a Bible thumper, but like mugged people and stole their shit. Like,
there's lots of money to be made in the good word.
Yeah.
Oh man, when he threw that or squished the frog and threw it against the tree,
I
cried.
and you like
so
hear
hard.
you hear it hit the tree.
Oh God, I can't.
Like
I didn't even care if it was Delmar. I was just sad about the frog.
I love frogs.
It wasn't Delmar though. It was
Pete.
Pete.
He loved him up and turned him into a horny
Yeah.
toad.
Oh my God, that's a great movie. But yeah,
Such
I
a
didn't
good
mean to go
movie.
off track there. That's just that's where the origin for Elijah came from.
Glinda was my great aunt's name, and
Oh,
I was
nice.
just trying to think of like really good granny names, and I just felt like Glinda is like
And the double G
Top
too,
notch.
that
Yeah,
just
Granny
goes
Glinda.
for a character that goes together.
rolls so well.
That was good.
I was gonna say, John, to your point to playing the character, like I never even put those two together. Like you've always been like your own unique character. Like Eli Woodstone is, Eli Woodstone.
Like I said, it wasn't conscious. It wasn't like I'm gonna make it after this. Like it just came out of my face like that.
Gil is definitely based on Owen Wilson.
If you haven't noticed, I see his face every time Gil talks.
Wow, but like in an elephant form.
Yeah, like for a while, I just kept seeing, like, picturing Gil as like Owen Wilson's face and not as an elephant.
Whenever I lose touch with Gil and his voice, I have to go wow.
Wow.
Which is I use that for the Penelope character as well, who's modeled after a dear friend of ours, Joyce, and she's just got the most perfectly sweet, high-pitched voice, and she sounds like an angel. And when she says wow, it's like it's an event.
I love it. I love
So
it.
that was starting off at the quarry was a real comfort zone for me as a storyteller, and I hope for us as a troupe. That was sort of reminiscent of a real place that we've spent time and been. And I think that's something that we haven't really touched on, but the nature of this story. So I set out to create Wooks and Warlocks, this hippie road life D&D adventure based on my own personal experiences with hitchhiking, traveling to festivals, performing at music festivals. And John and Ryan, you guys are not music festival folks.
As our characters, like, we're very much an out of water.
Yeah, so
this sort of thing.
I like the woods.
So I was happy to start. We did the Renaissance. The Renaissance Fair to me was the ideal place to begin the story because it created this sort of haze. This where are we? What's happening? Was this time traveling? It seemed obviously time traveling, and then they didn't time travel, and that set the stage for the series of festival style events. But going from that to a real comfortable place that was somewhere between festival grounds and was just like a home base where we spent many a good night. Was great for me. I hope was that kind of. Did you guys find some peace in that?
Yeah. Go ahead.
Yeah, I feel like I definitely did because starting out like recording and everything, I was like really nervous about just recording in general. I mean, you could tell in the first couple episodes that I'm just not very comfortable with talking in a microphone and like just constantly having this fear in the back of my head that I'm going to say the wrong thing and it's going to be out there forever. So going to the places that were familiar to me, I think helped. Like I'm so comfortable at the quarry that being there in game, I think helped me feel a little bit more comfortable with my character. And now I'm at the point where when we record, I don't even notice the microphone. It's just like playing Dungeons and Dragons with our buddies,
Yeah, you just like can't do like going back on what you said like
right.
like you would in a D&D game or being
exactly.
like no. It's like everything is just forward. Like just keep thinking forward. If you forget like an idea that you had, and you're just don't try to like remember. Just go forward.
It's an ultimate practice of yes
forward.
and. You gotta keep it moving.
Yep.
What about you, Ryan?
I love that, all that. I think it's great. Xantor came from I'm into like 3D printing and stuff, and like we were using this program to build characters, and I was like, oh, what's the maximum amount of arms I could fit on this character with it being the same price, because I was trying to save money, and it was like 4 or 6 or however many arms, and I'm like, oh well, it's got to be some kind of weirdo character, so I was like, oh, bug character, and then Xantor seemed like a bug name, with like 4 X's and 2 A's and then
it's so funny because you said in the first episode you're like who's looking at my beautiful character here? They've got 4 arms because they wouldn't let me have 6. And it's like who is they? Like what are you talking about?
That 3D printing program.
That's what he's talking about.
Which is great, and that's led like this. Because this has led us into like a world of like fantasy and creation, and like pretty much these days with the way it's getting, like you can have real worlds, you can design your own worlds, you can design your own characters, and from the bottom up, like have them, you can print like a little baby Xantor and like have him, print him in the different stages of his life, which I was just fell in love with from the beginning, and then that naturally leads to like story creation.
So I think that leads to something kind of interesting that I was wanting to talk about. So. When it comes to tabletop role-playing and my relationship to the game, I met John through our friend Lawson playing Dungeons & Dragons at his house every Sunday. John's house every Sunday. And we started out pen and paper with a little grid board, and what I absolutely fell in love with about the game was taking the trash that we had from shipping boxes and turning it into whole worlds. And we started there, and I had never really been a painter. And I, in fact, was very intimidated by painting, but with Jessie's a phenomenal painter, and she taught me some stuff, and we moved through, we started painting models, we started making these worlds. We're actually surrounded, if you look at photos of our studio, we've got all sorts of props for it. And like for the quarry, we had a big prop for the quarry. We did all sorts of things. We found through the recording that for Wooks and Warlocks, it actually was an impedance on the audio improv to have physical objects out. So I'm so used to using the props to fuel the story, to write the story. We design a character that defines them. We build a world, and that helps decide what the adventure is. And I think around episode 8 is basically when we went to the Valley Jam. Was when we stopped. We still had Valley Jam, still had props too. So it would have been post Valley Jam when you guys were running from the fuzz that we finally stopped using props. And in those earlier episodes, you could hear like references to this or that. The way that I would describe the world may have. For me, I thought about it at the time, like trying to describe the rock formations at the Valley Jam where you guys were battling, because I was describing our models, which are just what we make with our hands. There's no such thing as like a 12 20-foot by 30-foot square pillar that grows out of the ground in the forest. And so I was like trying to fit our narrative to that, and I found it to be limiting. And I know you guys had different ideas one way or the other about using the props. I was wondering kind of what you thought about that.
I love the props. They just remind me of like Christmas and like the little houses that my moms and pops would like put up around the house. Like it's all like sentimental for me. I'd love it more that we don't have them because we're forced to do audio descriptions of things. So for the podcast and for listening purposes, like you do not want props at all. But for the purpose of playing with your friends and not recording and maybe even a future video podcast, like we definitely would want props or some kind of like digital something we can show people.
I agree.
I like, I agree. Like, of course, it's fun playing games and having a whole table, like a village to work through, and like, seeing it from a bird's eye view like that is great. But definitely with the podcast, it helps to not have anything. I'd say like the one thing where I'd say that like it could still be used in the podcast, we just have to, actually, it doesn't even require that much description. I'm thinking in my head as I'm saying this, but in combat. For like spatial awareness of like basically just where the baddie is and where we are around them, it kind of helps somewhat still for that. But you still describe things and like, well, what's over here? Because it's not like we know what's around us with that. But it helps to know if I'm like sneaking up behind them. Sure. Where's Jesse and compared to the baddie? Where's
Ryan? Is a lot of stuff to keep track of all at once.
Yeah, I'd say that's the one area that it could still be effectively used on the podcast.
My attitude and thought on it is like, if you need to ask, then the listener needs to be reminded too. So if you're in this moment where you're like, I can't remember where Jesse is, then the listener is probably having that experience as well, and they'll never get to see the grid board.
That is true.
But maybe we'll try it again. I love the building stuff.
Yeah, it's hard for me. I'm such like a visual person, so I felt like with the props in front of me, I really was like, I'm gonna move in front of me or like towards that way where the bad guy is, instead of saying, I'm going to move towards the left here where the bad guy is so many feet.
Using the pronoun more than the antecedent.
Right, and I'm more of like in my brain, I think more in pictures and less so in words. So like I feel like it helps me expand my vocabulary and work, with actually putting it into a sentence instead of just relying on, my visual brain to picture it and stuff like that.
I think we've done a great job, like overall, just like because I remember one time, I can't remember what game or what episode it was, but you were describing something and I was looking at the table and like forming it in my head with my imagination. I was like, oh, okay, like this is what we're doing here, this is what we're trying to do. And more of that is going to be good for the listener, I think, for our own personal pleasure, of course,
it's like a practice too, like we get better at it that's what I feel like. It was foreign when we first started because I was so spoiled by the visual cues, but I feel like I'm getting, listeners,
we're getting better at it.
Roast me in the comment section if I'm not getting better.
Yeah, it forces us to be. And like the setup for all that stuff is just so time consuming. Like for characters specifically, I think it's important for even going for new people to the game,
to design like character.
Yeah, to really see your character, because that helps you like create a story around them or whatever.
And what I meant for battle, as far as that goes, not like anything like a scenery. I'm talking just like the individual like that one bad miniature, and then us, and just for like as far as like am I behind, or just because like I feel like it doesn't happen when we're playing like the narrative part of the game like that. I feel like it unfolds and I can see everything. But then like something happens in my mind when we go to battle that it's like Elijah, and then it's just like a black cloud, like darkness around. And then like when I ask a question, I see like, all right, there's a direction I can see in that. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
But it gets very much darker when we're in like the heat of the moment of battle. I don't know why that happens, but narrative, I feel like I can just like we're cruising. Like
Yeah.
Well, maybe the decision making of battle puts you in a state of like adrenaline. We'll try it out. I do think that like the listener's probably in that same cloud, and any questions you ask is going to expand the cloud for them as well.
I agree with that too. And that's why I'm like hesitant to even try it, because it's just going to make us better to keep describing it.
Well, I think the advantage would be like if we did have the bad guy set up on the table, we could be like bit more accurate with where they are. Like, Granny Glinda's going to move 15 feet west to go attack this guy.
Yeah, as long as we
standing
remember
on the
to
rock.
describe it. That's
Right,
the thing. Don't
and
take advantage of just being like, I'm going to move
I'm
over
gonna
there.
move over here, yeah.
That's what you don't
Either
want.
way, it's a skill set to like focus on communicating all of that.
For sure.
And it's been fun to learn. I feel like it really translates. I've been enjoying, for me, ever since we got to Yamaya, we've just been rolling and rolling. Our characters have been really finding their place within the world that we're in now. There's I see like you guys becoming more comfortable with your roles as actors and who you are. Do you guys feel like there was a particular point in the story where you really sunk into your character and felt the stride, like I understand the world and I understand, or maybe you haven't gotten there yet, and that could be where you're at as well. But we could just go in a circle with that if that makes it easier.
Usually it starts over here with Xantor. This guy is so yeah, as you can imagine, I bonded with Xantor like throughout the entire process. Like he is I fell in love with him with his child, once Drake got born, and watching their relationship kind of naturally develop in my mind, like as I'm doing work at our little factory place where we do factory stuff, and I'm like thinking of like I'm like, because I'm a father in real life, so I have.
I was going to bring that up.
And so it's like I think about these kind of things, and it kind of expresses through their little relationship, and that endears me to both of them. And then like the ability to, also having to stay in character because this guy is like a weird, just got off a pirate ship, just got out of the woods, like he's trying to get better at shooting, like he's got his own like negative qualities that kind of affect all these things, and it's just so fascinating. Yeah, I really enjoy. That was a pivotal scene. Just that whole interaction with
birth.
And then like being away from him, like putting him in harm's way, and then getting him out of harm's way, and it's just like, what do we do with this? How do you make a kid that you love stronger, but safely? You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And that's like because they're going to be having to
that's something
fly
you can
through
really
the
relate
skies
to
and battle and eat cows or whatever dragons do. I mean. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I feel like I always had like a deep connection with Granny. Like from the start, I knew who Granny Glinda was. I knew who she was going to be. I knew what kind of character she was, and I always felt like connected. It wasn't really hard to fall into that character, but the hard part for me was like just getting over the nerves of recording. Those first 3 to 5 episodes, I felt like I can tell when I listen to my voice that I am not comfortable talking into a microphone. But I feel like once we did get to Yamaya, it was just something, whatever barrier in my brain just kind of stepped over it because I was so excited about what was happening in the story. It was easier for me to just like let go of those nerves and just be Granny Glinda. And so like I don't think I had a hard time figuring out where she was going or what kind of character she was going to be. I think it was just Jessie in real life being nervous about recording, and so that kind of like reflected in the earlier episodes. But once we got to Yamaya, I thought like there's so much happening. It was so funny. I was just loving every interaction, so it like took down that nervousness in my brain, and I was just able to jump right into it again.
Man. I'm trying to think. I don't know. I've always been pretty comfortable with it. I guess the voice at first was throwing it, but then it settled in eventually. And it just started once, like, it was right around the time I would say, like, Eli was getting comfortable with his party. Like, I was getting comfortable with the voice.
Right.
So then, like, he just, like, instead of, like, being all, like, his proper self, that was more of him, like, being polite. And me settling into the voice as well. So, like, he smoothed out and chilled out at the same time that, like, I figured that out. And probably the time, I don't know, if I could think of a time where, like, I really felt like it started to settle in with the character, it would probably be, like, his reaction to the reefer.
Oh, yeah. Oh, my gosh.
It's like choosing to have him have a bad reaction, like a country boy, like,
sure,
type thing.
making more in character decisions than this is what it would be. There's no other question.
Yeah,
and I think we
sort of flowing at that point.
Everybody does a really good job of that, of not making metagaming decisions, of making decisions your character will make. It is frustrating as hell to sometimes, but it's really cool to see it happen, and I think that's an interesting thing to hear about Elijah's stiff formality being a function not only of him becoming comfortable with the group, but also of you becoming comfortable with speaking as the character, because he does become much more chill and opens up to all sorts of different behaviors that you wouldn't necessarily expect from the initial Elijah impression. That's cool to hear. So a little bit of more trivia while we're going through the stuff. There's no way you would know this, but man, we were so committed to making this podcast. So we moved into this house April of this year, and we were unable to get internet until like September. Which
is when we started, right? Did we start the
podcast?
We
started recording
with no internet, right?
I think May or June. Yeah, we started with no internet, and so everything we did, we would go and download on the internet somewhere publicly, and then bring the computer back home or do something. And so it was a real labor of love those first few months getting it out. We had to really, really want to do it, and bouncing stuff to our cell phones and using our cell phones' internet to transfer files back and forth to make sure everything was going. And then, I think it's written and evident, but I do most of the music myself, and so I was just building my first home studio and recording all that, all without internet. Was a really cool experience.
That music addition to the podcast, by the way, takes it from to a whole nother damn level. I love listening to it, but you're the difference between having the music and not having the music would be night and day.
Sure. Yeah. Or Ryan wouldn't even listen to it without the music. I was I need reviews. He's like, I'm not going to listen till you post it.
Well, all the listener may or may not know, me, Jesse, and John. I don't know how much you do, Jesse. Living here and stuff, but we do no work. We come in, we play our part. We're a character in this world that Trey sets up for us. Trey edits for us. Trey adds music for us. Trey publishes for us. He is the mastermind of all of this shit, and putting it all together for you guys. You need to really send this guy a thank you card, or Valentine's is coming up, I believe.
Thanks,
I have
Trey.
a Valentine. She's right
I'll
there.
kill you.
Well, candy, more candy to the house. They can probably send candy.
We have a good bit of a delay though before this comes out versus the next episode that is about to be released.
I will probably. This doesn't have any spoilers, so I probably am going to post this sooner than later.
We're peeking inside, a little peek inside our brains.
So
I was just about to spoil.
No spoilers. No spoilers. We've done a great job so far. We've only talked about plot points up to Maya, and I think that we can keep it there, and that way we won't fudge anything up for our listeners. Because there is, I think we should do this again, and there's some pretty dramatic things that have happened in the episodes we've recorded that we haven't released that I think will make for some interesting topics of conversation in the future. And man, we've covered so much stuff, and I don't want to just breeze past. Thank you, Ryan. That was very sweet. And the whole reason for doing it is I feel like it's great to give you guys an opportunity to use microphones, to be published on Spotify, to show how hilarious and brilliant you are. And so it's there's so much mutuality here. It's very, very cool to be in a realm of that kind of mutual respect. So we're about at the halfway point of recording our journey, and with what you guys have released, we're about at the halfway point. So
we just got abducted, right? Or the one you just released?
No,
nothing
John.
to you, Maya.
Well, no. It was supposed to be up until the point because of what's released, right? So this would be released right now. What just happened?
You're right.
I haven't listened to the one that you just released.
That did just get released.
But the one that you just released is actually taking place on it. The end of the previous one.
Yes.
Before that is
the last episode we released was the.
It's called UFO. That's the name of the episode.
So, 25 in the year 2525 was the one where we get abducted, and then UFO is the
we're on it.
The one where we're now.
But that's why I said it. I was putting that mental cap in my brain. That's where I can talk up to.
You're right. Sorry, we corrected you. We'll leave it in so that our shame can be known.
I'm currently looking around the room for the synthesizer because, I believe all the stuff is done from this one beautifully designed and decorated room with this awesome wooden table that we get to sit around.
You gotta post some pictures.
My dad made this table. Thanks, Dad.
Oh, nice.
Yay, Joe.
The record, everything is done from right here, and it's pretty awesome.
So, where we're at in the journey so far, we've been through a lot. Our motivations have gone from these, I don't want to say selfish, but these singular motivations, these localized motivations, maybe better than selfish, to now you guys have been sucked into something larger than yourselves, larger than life, that may even, transcend realities as you know it. With what we have so far, where do you see your character going, and what would you like to see at the end of this story for Xantor, Granny Glenda, and Elijah Woodstone?
I almost said Xantor. Are
we allowed to make these requests with you here? Because then you're gonna be leaning into it.
You don't have to give it to us or not. We could die next encounter.
I have things planned out and stuff, but yeah, anything could change, and I anticipate your goals for your character will change.
Elijah's been dropped twice. You might be dead in a week of play. We'll see.
He put himself out there a couple times.
He's getting stronger though. The mage gets the wizard stuff. Xantor has no end. He wants to go to the forever. Xantor wants to ride his dragon into the sunset that never sets. That's it.
Immortality.
Sort of, kind of. Just there's many ways I think in the D&D world to attain immortality, but level 20 is a goal. You get to level 20, it's a good way to start. So stay alive. That's about it.
I think Granny Glenda is enjoying some of the companions right now. I don't think she has a deep personal connection to any of them like the way she does with Parker and all of that. So I think what she would do is try to, her goal is still to make Parker a real boy again. He's just a ghost in a pile of ashes right now. She wants to be able to hug him in real life, and I think, once she hopefully gets Parker reanimated as a real boy, I think what she would do is go back into her humble life that she wanted to have with her grandson before he got viciously murdered, and she went out seeking how to reanimate him. So I think she would live a humble life. She would ask Parker if he would prefer to, try to get back to the past or stay in the future, and we would go to whichever scenery or island he would prefer and live out the rest of our days happy and peaceful.
I like that.
All right, Elijah. Well, as far as what he wants versus what I want for him, I don't know. He's getting stronger. He's kind of just riding the wave. What I want for him is somewhere in between God King and Dr. Manhattan.
Okay.
Something in that range. But I don't know. He does keep throwing himself out there, so I wouldn't be surprised if he gets himself killed.
I sure hope none of our characters get themselves killed.
I don't want that.
And we got revived stuff too.
He just has that vibe about him, He has that sort of sacrifice, jump on the bomb or something.
Well, he seems to forget that he's got a wizard's level of HP. He behaves like he's like a fighter, and he does have quite a bit of strength. He does not have a similar level.
That's because he's an elk in the rut, man.
Yeah, totally.
So if Elijah became a god king, do you think he would have a normal crown, or do you think he would do something wild like dip his horns in gold and jewels?
They're already silver tipped, but I think at God King status they'd have to be gold tipped at that point, and then always with some fresh blood on them.
Oh wow! Oh my!
Always with fresh blood.
What deity? So a lot of the times in these realms you have the god of magic, or the god of fighting, or the god of war, or maybe the god of love. What domain do you think that Elijah would seek to have power over?
Well, him being a farmer, and and the fact that most of his magic is earth based, he would definitely his god would be a Gaia type of thing.
Cool.
Loon, the planet itself.
Yeah. Okay.
That's
I like
cool.
that.
I do too.
These are great answers to these questions, guys. It's been fun to get the curtains broken open just a little bit. to talk about what it's been like. I think this was long overdue, and listeners, if you like it, let us know, and we'll do another one. Send us in some questions, and we won't have to come up with stuff off the top of our head. We'd love to know what you guys would like to know about us, or the recording process, or the characters. Feel free to send those in via social media, or if you know us, just holler at us, and we'll bring it on up. Thank you guys for staying tuned in, and please join us next time.
You can check out Elijah's OnlyFans at... No, I'm just kidding.
Check in next time for another thrilling episode of Wooks and Warlocks.
Round and around in the tunnel when it's dark we go, searching through the rubble for what wants to spark like a shout in the night. And the sight of the past, it can fill us with fear or might, though we know the wheel comes back after time. Oh, sweet time. And the soul will rise from the ashes. We will climb as we shout into the night. Let no man mute my battle cry. Dark clouds brewing a storm deep in the sky. Words spoken in anger, vibrant like a neon sign in the mind's eye, multiplied by time and time again. It's those we love that we lose when we struggle with what's inside, just hoping for hope, something to